Hi everyone, this is RAZA, and today we'll be talking about the domestic violence. This presentation is prepared by the Group 12, and we'll be discussing about domestic violence from social, philosophical, and national principle perspectives. So let's start. Let's introduce the topic. So, what is actually domestic violence? Domestic violence refers to the abuse that happens within the home or family environment. It can involve physical, emotional, or psychological harm. This issue is important because uh, it happens in families in Malaysia and often happens behind the doors. So, why this issue is important? Why we have to talk about it? And the issue is serious because domestic violence is often hidden and not reported. Many victims are afraid to speak up. Over time, this causes long damage, and not only the victims, but had also the children and society. So, if we talk about the presentation, what we're doing, what we're presenting today. So, the objective of our presentations are first to understand domestic violence as social issue. Second, to analyze it using philosophy, and third, to relate it to issue to Malaysian national values. So let's talk about the terms or terminologies so we can better present what we are going to say next. So, domestic violence includes any form of abuse within a family or relationship. A victim is the person who suffers from the abuse, while the perpetrator is the person who commits the violence. And then obviously we need to see what are the types of domestic violence, because not every violence can be considered as domestic, but people still don't understand that there are so many violences which falls in domestic violence. So domestic violence does not only mean physical abuse, it also includes emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and financial control, where victims are restricted from accessing money or making decisions. So then obviously we have to see why this happens, why the domestic violence happens. One main cause is power and control, where one person tries to dominate another. Other causes include financial stress, alcohol abuse, and cultural beliefs that normalize aggression behavior at home. Then obviously we have to see what is the impact on the victims, why we need to speak about it, why it is important. So victims of the domestic violence may suffer physical injuries and emotional trauma. Many experience anxiety, depressions, and loss of self-confidence, which affects their daily life. Then obviously it not only affects the victim, but it also affects the children and the society because it has a ripple effect. Children who grow up in violent homes may develop fear, stress, and behavior problems at a societal level. Domestic violence increases healthcare costs and weakens social stability. And obviously, in Malaysia, if we look at the past 5 years, based on the Malaysian statistics reported, domestic violence cases have increased over the past 5 years. The rise was especially noticeable during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then, obviously, if we see the chart shows a steady increase in domestic violence cases. However, experts believe the real number is higher because many cases are not reported. Then, obviously, we have to see what is in the media. So, if we see, the first article explains how movement restrictions during the pandemic increased domestic violence cases. Victims were trapped at home and had limited access to help. Then, obviously, another you can say article we can that the second article focuses on legal protections in Malaysia. Although laws exist, victims still face challenges such as slow legal procession and lack of awareness. And then, obviously, we have to see what are the psychological analysis for that. Then, from a utilitarian perspective, um, domestic violence is wrong because it causes suffering and reduces overall happiness in society. It harms victims, families, and the community. And also, like from a philosophical view, or you can say dentology view, dentology focuses on moral duty. Domestic violence is morally wrong because it violates the duty to respect others' rights and dignity regardless of the outcome. Now, if we also see the ethics, then it's philosophical analysis, which is virtual ethics. Then virtue ethics looks at the moral character. Domestic violence shows lack of virtue, like compassion, patience, and self-control, which are important in family relationships. Then we if see in there is actually an you can say a principle which is called as Rukun Nigara, principle one, belief in God. Most religion teach love and respect within family. Domestic violence goes against the principle of belief in God because it contradicts moral and religious teachings. Then obviously there is another principle, which is this principle emphasizes respectful and moral behavior. The domestic violence clearly violates courtesy and morality because it involves harms and disrespect. Then, so what we learned about it? As a group, we learned that domestic violence is more complex than we initially thought. It includes emotional and psychological abuse, not just physical violence. Then, obviously, the assignment helped us improve teamwork and research skills. We learned how to work together and think critically about social issues. And so, what are the solutions? Obviously, we talked about the violence and the problems. What are the solutions? Possible solutions include increasing public awareness, strengthening law enforcement, and providing better support services such as shelter and counseling. Then, obviously, we need to see what is the conclusion of this presentation. So, in conclusion, domestic violence is a serious social and moral issue. It affects individuals, families, and societies. Everyone has a role in preventing and addressing this problem. And obviously, as a reference, you can see there are the references used for our presentation based on the reliable Malaysian sources and academic materials. And obviously, here you can see images from all over the internet, uh, from Women's Aid Organization, All Women's Action Society, and which are actually encouraging and motivating people to stop domestic violence and also to report it as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us, and hope all the best to us. Thank you.